At my son's 5th birthday, my niece blew out his candles and took his gifts while my family cheered. I walked out with my kid that night. Then I gathered every receipt, filed reports, and watched their perfect reputation fall apart piece by piece. Hey, Reddit. My family always treated my son like he didn't matter. While my niece could do no wrong, I put up with it longer than I should have until one birthday crossed a line I'm never letting anyone get near again. A lot happened after that, but before I get into the mess, here's how it all started. I'm Angelica, 34, electrician, single mom. My son's name is Milo. He's 5. His mom walked out when he was 3 and never looked back. No calls, no visits, nothing. So, it's just us. I don't bend easy for anyone. And I'm not the keep the peace at all costs type. Only soft spot I've got is for my kid. My parents, Mara and Dennis, are the kind of people who think they're always right because they're older. My sister Tessa acts like she's better than everyone, and her husband Reed agrees with whatever she says. They treat their daughter Jenna like some princess that the rest of us should orbit around. Milo is basically background decoration to them. I've pulled back from them a lot the last few years, but Milo's 5th birthday was coming up and he kept talking about wanting a big party where I can run around with my friends. My apartment isn't big. My parents heard that and jumped on it. You have to do it here, Mara said. We've got the space, the yard, the proper setup. I told them I was fine doing something smaller at a park. They pushed. You don't want him to miss out, do you? Tessa added. They made it sound like they were doing Milo this huge favor. I agreed for one reason only. The kid wanted a big party. I wasn't going to let my pride get in the way of that. We showed up a little early so Milo could see everything before the guests arrived. He was in his little blue Prince jacket we picked out together. He'd been excited about that jacket for a week straight. I set down a small bag with a few presents for him. One from me and a couple from friends who couldn't make it, so he'd have something to open no matter what. The front door opened, and straight away it started. Mara spotted Tessa and Jenna coming up the walkway, Reed right behind them, and her whole face lit up like a spotlight. Jenna! She yelled, pushing past Milo to get to her. Dennis followed, arms wide. There's my girl. They bent down, hugging and kissing her, going on about how beautiful she looked. Milo was standing right there holding a small gift bag he'd brought for Jenna because he wanted to be nice. Since it's my party too. They glanced at him long enough to say, "Hey Milo," and then went right back to fussing over Jenna. I rested a hand on his shoulder. Go put your gift on the table, bud, I said. They led us into the living room where they'd set up decorations, balloons, a happy birthday banner, cheap streamers. Normal enough. What stood out was the little photo display. They'd done this line of hanging photos and frames on the table underneath. Milo stared at it for a second. Then he pointed up and said in a small voice, "They put a lot of Jenna pictures." "Yeah," I said, "they did." Mara walked in then, wiping invisible crumbs off the counter. "Well, what do you think?" She sounded proud, like she'd just produced a professional event. "You couldn't print more pictures of him?" I asked, looking right at her. She blinked like she'd been slapped with cold water. "Oh, well, these were just what I had lying around." "You've had 5 years of lying around," I said. "You could have found more than one." She gave this annoyed little laugh. "Don't be so sensitive, Angelica. It's just pictures." Milo tugged my sleeve. "It's okay, Mom. I like the balloons," he whispered. That was the only reason I let it go in that moment. We moved into the kitchen. A few minutes later, they followed us in. Tessa talking, Reed nodding, Jenna still marching like the star of the show. Tessa did her usual fake nice tone. "Oh, you made it. Good. We were worried you'd do something tiny again, like last year at that playground." "That party was for him, not for you," I said. "He had fun." She smiled like I'd told a joke she didn't find funny. "Well, this is more proper." Milo tried to show Mara his jacket. "Grandma, look, I'm your prince today." Mara glanced over, gave a quick smile, and then turned back to Tessa. "Did you see Jenna's dress? It was so expensive, but totally worth it." Jenna twirled. Everyone clapped. Milo stood there with his little half smile, hand still on his jacket. Nothing huge had blown yet, but the tone was set. I could feel it. The looks, the fake compliments, the way they leaned toward Jenna and away from Milo without even thinking about it. But Milo was excited. He kept asking, "When will my friends be here? When can we do cake? When can I show everyone the yard?" I wasn't about to crush that with an argument in the first 30 minutes. So, I didn't say everything in my head. I just stayed close to him, watched, listened, filed things away. Once more people started arriving, Milo got even more excited. He'd been practicing little things all week. Just kid stuff he was proud of. He ran up to Mara first, holding a balloon sword he made with one of the twisty balloons. Grandma, look, I made this. Mara didn't even turn fully toward him. Uh-huh. That's nice, she said, waving her hand like she was shooing a fly. She kept talking to Dennis about making sure the cupcakes don't get smudged, even though none of them were in sight. Milo tried again with Dennis a minute later, showing him a crayon drawing he made that morning. Dennis glanced at it for half a second. Good, good, he muttered, more focused on adjusting a tablecloth that didn't need adjusting. Meanwhile, Jenna walked in wearing her sparkly pink dress, and every adult near her lit up like a switch. Oh my gosh, honey, you look precious, Mara gushed. Just perfect, Dennis added. Reed beamed as if she'd invented oxygen. Milo was standing right next to them holding his drawing. Nobody looked down at him. I watched all of it. No surprise, but still irritating. I told Milo, hey, show me. He handed me the drawing and I knelt down. That's awesome. You did this by yourself? He nodded proudly. I made sure he saw me actually pay attention. A few minutes later, he went to try his last thing. He practiced a little magic trick with a coin. He tapped Mara's arm gently. Grandma, want to see a trick? She barely glanced at him. Not now, sweetie. I'm busy. She was busy opening containers of chips that were already open. Jenna walked by holding a random plastic bracelet, and Mara gasped like she'd brought out a priceless artifact. Look at this adorable bracelet on Jenna. Isn't she just the cutest? Milo's shoulders dropped a little. I saw it. That slow deflation kids get when they realize someone isn't interested in them. I hated it. Then came the moment that snapped the tension tight. Milo tried helping set the table. He picked up one of the smaller paper plates, literally paper. And as he set it down, his hand slipped and it fluttered to the floor. Mara whipped around like he'd shattered crystal. Milo, really? Can't you be careful for once? You're making a mess. The room went quiet. Milo froze. I stepped between them fast, steady voice, but sharp. Don't talk to him like that. She blinked like she couldn't believe I'd spoken. Angelica, it's just... No, I said. Lower your tone. It's a paper plate. Milo moved behind me without me asking. Mara looked embarrassed, but more offended than remorseful. Right then, Tessa and Reed arrived in the doorway like they were entering a stage performance. Everything okay? Tessa asked, eyebrows raised. Not concerned, judging. We're fine, I said. Tessa gave the room a once-over. Just making sure. We want today to go smoothly. Reed chimed in. Especially for Jenna. She's been looking forward to this. It was Milo's birthday, but all right. After a bit, Mara announced it was time to open presents. Milo perked up right away. He climbed onto the little decorated chair they'd set out for him. He was excited. I could see him trying to shake off everything that happened earlier. Tessa carried in a huge gift bag, way bigger than the others, and set it in front of Milo. Before he could touch it, she held her hand up. Some of these are for Jenna too, she said casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. No, I said immediately. It's his birthday. Tessa didn't even look at me. Well, we didn't want Jenna to feel left out. She's sensitive. Milo looked confused. I could tell he didn't understand why his name was on the bag if it wasn't really for him. They ignored me and started helping him open things. Every time something good came out, a nice puzzle set, a cute stuffed fox, a coloring kit, Jenna snatched it before Milo even held it. Tessa laughed. She loves it. Oh my God, so cute. Reed nodded proudly. Milo kept reaching gently, not grabbing, just trying to hold something that was supposed to be his. Jenna shoved him aside twice. The only things left for him were cheap little trinkets, plastic toys from the dollar bin, stuff I hadn't even seen in the original pile on the gift table. Dennis noticed Milo's expression and shook his head. Come on, Milo, don't pout. Nobody likes a sore loser. Milo looked down fast, trying to hide his face. My jaw clenched so hard I felt it in my teeth. I wanted to end the whole thing right there, but Milo was still trying to stay calm. I could see him forcing himself to breathe slowly, the way I taught him. So I waited. When Mara announced it was cake time, Milo lit up again. It was the happiest he'd looked all afternoon. He kept bouncing on his toes, pressing his hands together like he was trying to hold in his excitement. Mom, is it time now? He asked, smiling so big it softened everything in me. Yeah, buddy, it's time, I said. The kids gathered in the dining area where the cake was set up. It was a simple vanilla cake with blue frosting and Milo's name in white letters. He'd been talking about blowing out his candles for days. He practiced at home on an empty cup, blowing hard and saying, "That was a good wish." Milo climbed onto the chair next to the cake, sitting up straight like he was royalty. His feet swung under the seat, too short to touch the ground. Just as I felt the mood easing a little, Tessa walked in, holding a fancy white cupcake box from some overpriced bakery. She placed it right next to the cake, practically pushing the edge of Milo's plate. So, that's what Mara had been fussing about earlier. the Jenna cupcake she didn't want smudged. "This is a special treat for Jenna," Tessa said loudly. "She's earned something of her own today." I stared at the box, then at her. "Why would you bring something separate?" I asked calmly. "It's Milo's day." Tessa didn't even stop to acknowledge me. She opened the box and pulled out a gourmet cupcake with gold sprinkles. She handed it straight to Jenna like she was presenting a trophy. Jenna smirked at Milo while unwrapping it. "Look, Mom got me a special one," she bragged. Milo looked confused for a second, then looked back at his cake. He forced a smile and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. I like my cake." I nodded, but didn't look away from Tessa. The disrespect wasn't even subtle anymore. Mara clapped her hands. "All right, everyone, let's sing." Everyone crowded around the table. Milo sat proudly with his hands folded, staring at his candles like he was memorizing them. There were 5, one for each year. He'd been counting them since this morning, reminding me he was almost big now. The singing started. Milo kicked his feet happily under the chair. He leaned forward slightly, already preparing to blow. He was glowing. This was the moment he'd been waiting for all week. When the song ended, I took out my phone to record him blowing out the candles. Milo leaned in, cheeks puffing, and Jenna suddenly darted in from the side, fast, deliberate. She shoved her way between Milo and the cake, planted her elbows on the table, and blew every candle out in one long breath. Every single one. Milo froze. His mouth stayed open halfway through his breath. He blinked once, confused, then again slower. A few adults laughed. "Oh, she's quick," Mara said, clapping. Tessa giggled. "She just gets excited." Milo was too slow. He hesitated, Dennis added. "Next time, be faster, kiddo." Milo's little face crumpled instantly. His hands dropped into his lap. He stared at the candles, now just thin lines of smoke drifting upward. His lower lip shook once, then again, then the tears hit fast. He burst into full sobs. Not loud screaming, not tantrum crying, just this raw, heartbroken sound kids make when something really matters to them. His shoulders curled inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. That was it for me. I moved forward, picked him up, and held him against my chest. He clung to me right away, fists gripping my shirt, crying into my shoulder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, but my whole posture must have changed because the room went quiet. I felt that cold, focused calm I only get when a line's been crossed. I looked around the table. "We're done here," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "Don't contact us." Tessa made a face. "Angelica, seriously, it was just a candle." I didn't look at her. I shifted Milo higher on my shoulder and grabbed our bag with my free hand. Mara stepped forward. "Don't make a scene." I walked straight past her. "Don't contact us," I repeated. Reed muttered something under his breath about me being dramatic, but I was already heading toward the door. Milo was still sobbing into my neck, small and shaking. I didn't rush him. I just held him tightly and walked out. The sun outside felt too bright after that dim room. As I reached my parents' driveway, I saw their neighbor, Mrs. Holston, walking back from her mailbox across the street. She stopped when she saw us, Milo clinging to me and crying hard. Her whole face shifted with concern. "Angelica, is everything all right?" she asked quietly. I shook my head once. "Not here," I said, keeping my voice steady for Milo's sake. She frowned deeply, watching us with that look older people get when they know something isn't right, but don't push out of respect. She watched me open the car door, settle Milo into his seat gently, and kiss the top of his head. I buckled him in, wiping his cheeks with my sleeve as he kept crying softly. And with that, I shut the car door, got in, and drove away from the house I should have never walked into in the first place. I didn't drive straight home. Milo was still crying in the back seat, wiping his face with his sleeves, and I couldn't just end the day like that. So, I turned toward his favorite spot, this little diner he loves, because they draw smiley faces on the pancakes. It's the place where he always asks the waitress about how many pancakes she's carried in her whole life. It usually cheers him up fast. When we parked, he was quiet, but not crying anymore. I got out, opened his door, and unbuckled him. "Let's get something good to eat," I said gently. "Whatever you want." He nodded, rubbing his eyes. I lifted him out, and he leaned his forehead against my shoulder for a second before we walked inside. They seated us by the window like usual. Milo sat across from me, still holding on to his little party hat crumpled in his hand. They seated us by the window like usual. Milo sat across from me, still holding on to his little party hat crumpled in his hand. The waitress came over with menus, smiled, and said, "Birthday boy, huh?" Usually, he'd light up and tell her all about turning 5, but he just lowered his head and mumbled, "Yeah." I ordered him pancakes with extra syrup. He didn't even look at the menu. When the food came, he pushed it around with his fork. Didn't take a single bite. I tried to keep things light. Hey, champ, pancakes looking too fancy for you today? Nothing, just a small shrug. Then he finally looked up at me, eyes still red, and asked quietly, Mom, why didn't they let me blow it? He said it like he was asking about something complicated, something he couldn't make sense of no matter how long he thought about it. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. They didn't stop you. Jenna just got in the way. That wasn't your fault. He stared at the pancakes. Did I do something wrong? No, I said immediately. You didn't do anything wrong at all. He nodded slowly, but I could see he wasn't convinced. He kept twirling the fork around, but didn't eat a single piece. The diner felt louder than usual, clinking plates and people laughing around us. But at our table, it was dead quiet. After a few more minutes of him just staring at his food, I asked softly, You want to go home? He nodded again. I flagged the waitress, boxed the food, even though it was untouched, and carried Milo back to the car. He leaned against me the whole walk. The drive home was silent. He looked out the window with that tired, defeated expression kids get after crying too much. Every so often, he'd sniff or hiccup. I kept checking the mirror to make sure he wasn't spiraling again. When we got home, he walked inside slowly, went straight to his room without saying anything, and curled up on his bed. He didn't ask about presents or cake or anything. He didn't even ask to watch a movie. He just pulled his blanket over his legs and stared at the wall. I sat beside him for a bit and smoothed his hair back. I'm right here, I told him. He whispered, I'm okay, but his voice was shaky. After he finally drifted off, I left his door cracked and went to clean up the living room out of habit. I hadn't even taken my shoes off yet when I heard small footsteps. Milo walked out, eyes half open, hair messed up. He wasn't fully awake. He came straight to me and climbed into my lap like he had when he was smaller. I held him, thinking he was about to ask for water or that he had a bad dream. Instead, he murmured, voice tiny and tired, Grandma said Jenna is her real grandkid because she's smart. Then he leaned against my chest and fell back asleep. I didn't move. My whole body went still. It felt like the air in the room dropped 10 degrees. I'd expected a lot of garbage from my family that day, but hearing that come out of my son's mouth, that was a different kind of hit. I carried him back to bed, tucked him in, and stood there for a long second watching him sleep. He looked worn out, cheeks still blotchy from crying. Once I knew he was fully asleep, I went to my desk. I didn't pace or rant or call anyone. I worked better quiet, and I was past trying to convince anyone of anything. I opened my laptop, pulled out the folder where I kept old messages, and started gathering everything. Old texts from my mother dismissing Milo, emails about money changes that never added up, bank statements with withdrawals I never approved, photos from past gatherings where Milo got brushed aside, receipts from the college fund deposits that didn't match the current balance, notes I'd written down over the years when something seemed off. One by one, I stacked everything in order. By the time I finished sorting everything, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I got up early. Milo was still asleep, curled up with his stuffed dinosaur. I didn't wake him. I had things to do, and none of them required him seeing or hearing anything. At the kitchen table, I spread out my laptop, phone, and a folder of everything I'd gathered the night before. I wasn't angry in a loud way, just focused. First call my lawyer, Mr. Fallon. I told him what happened, what I'd found in the bank statements, and what I needed. Bring everything in today, he said. We'll start the filings. Second call, a private investigator I'd used years earlier during custody hearings, Harlan Pierce. I explained the missing funds and inheritance discrepancies. I'll dig, he said. Give me a week. Third call, the bank. I scheduled a meeting that afternoon to review Milo's accounts. The college fund was a UTMA custodial account my parents had opened when he was a baby. The money legally belonged to Milo, not them. My lawyer sent a formal demand for a full accounting. Fourth call, Milo's school counselor. I told her there had been emotional issues and that my son wouldn't be around certain relatives anymore. She took it seriously. We met the next morning. Nothing about this would be quick. Over the next 2 weeks, the pieces fell into place. At the bank, the advisor showed me withdrawals labeled family support and educational expenses. I'd never requested any of them. How much total, I asked. She gave me the number. It wasn't small. It was deliberate. Then the inheritance. After my grandmother died, money was left for both Milo and Jenna. I'd been told Milo's share was in a savings account my parents managed. But half the transfers were missing. Several deposits that should have gone to Milo never arrived. One mailed check had even been readdressed to Tessa's home after my parents filed an address change with the bank. Around the same time, Harlan called back. Aunt Lorraine had sent Milo checks for every birthday and holiday until he turned 5. After his 3rd birthday, my parents had changed the mailing address on her envelopes to theirs. None of those checks were ever deposited into Milo's account. He couldn't access their tax filings, but during a lawful trash pull, he recovered a mailer from their tax preparer, a checklist asking Mara to confirm Milo's social security number as a dependent. It wasn't the return itself, but it proved the pattern. A week later, he found more. Tessa had been applying for school programs under single-parent status to get reduced fees for Jenna, though she was fully married. He sent me copies of the forms with her signature in black ink. Piece by piece, the picture tightened. They'd been using Milo's name, funds, and identity whenever it benefited them. I moved quietly. Tax fraud report. I submitted everything to the IRS with proof attached. I didn't need speed, only accuracy. School safety report. I filled out the district form stating Milo was not to be released to Mara, Dennis, Tessa, or Reed under any circumstances. The counselor logged a do not release notice that morning. By Friday, every emergency contact card had been updated. Financial misuse report to the court. My lawyer filed for a full accounting of the college fund and inheritance, demanding records of every withdrawal and transfer. Bank notifications. The bank froze all accounts they could access and opened a new custodial account in my name as custodian. Future deposits went there. The old one stayed locked until the review finished. There was no shouting, no confrontation. The consequences would arrive quietly in certified envelopes. During those weeks, Milo stuck close. He seemed lighter without them around, but still asked, "Do we have to see them again, or will Grandma be mad forever?" I always told him, "You don't have to see anyone who makes you feel bad." He'd nod and go back to his toys. The next morning, after my calls, I met with the counselor. She said Milo had mentioned feeling pushed aside before, and that the birthday had clearly hurt him. "We'll make sure he feels safe here," she promised. And I believed her. Within 3 weeks, everything was in motion. Investigations, account freezes, flagged records, all without a single argument or raised voice. My family had crossed a line they couldn't uncross, and I wasn't giving them the chance to pretend they didn't. Part 3. About a week after the original birthday mess, I got an email from Milo's teacher asking if she could speak with me. She said she'd noticed Milo was quieter in class, not raising his hand as much, not showing his drawings to anyone. That wasn't like him. He usually talked nonstop. I went in the next morning before work. Milo sat at a little table playing with blocks while the teacher, Ms. Hale, pulled me aside. She kept her voice low, careful. "He told me something happened at his birthday," she said. "He didn't give many details at first, but he looked upset, so I asked him gently." Milo wandered over while we were talking. He stood next to me and held onto my pant leg. Ms. Hale crouched down. "Milo, do you want to tell your mom what you told me?" He nodded slowly. "They didn't let me blow my candles," he whispered. And Grandma said I wasn't her real grandkid." Hearing him say it out loud to someone else made the whole room feel too still. Ms. Hale didn't look shocked, more like disappointed in the adults responsible. She stood and said, "I have to file a report. Emotional harm is still harm. It's required." She filed the mandated report that afternoon. The counselor added a supplement the next morning, cross-referencing my earlier meeting. By week's end, the system showed them as do not release, just reinforcing what the office had already put in place, and their names were off every emergency card. While that happened, my parents' neighbor, Mrs. Holston, quietly played her part without me asking. I didn't tell her anything, but she'd seen enough the day of the party. She mentioned to a couple of people on their street what she saw, me carrying Milo out while he cried. The tension in the air, the look on my face, not gossiping, just describing what she witnessed. In small communities, that's enough to start conversations, and people started talking. Not loudly, not publicly, but in that subtle way where folks become polite but distant toward the ones at fault. I noticed it the next time I passed Mara at the grocery store. 2 people who usually chatted with her gave her quick nods and moved on. One woman who always complimented Jenna didn't look at her this time. Dennis's buddy from the hardware store barely greeted him when I saw them outside. I didn't fuel anything. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Support came in quietly. Naturally, a coworker asked if Milo was doing all right. A parent from Milo's class offered extra decorations she had left over from her kid's party. Ms. Hale asked if we needed anything. Even the diner waitress who saw us last week slipped me a coupon for Milo's pancakes with a small smile. So, I decided to do something important. I threw Milo the birthday he deserved. Not a replacement, a real one. I rented a small room at the community center. Nothing fancy, but clean, open, and brightly lit. A couple of parents helped hang decorations. Mrs. Holston brought homemade cookies shaped like stars. Someone donated balloons. A mom from Milo's class brought a small speaker for music. It wasn't big or glamorous, but it was warm, safe, ours. When Milo walked in, he froze. He stared at the setup like he couldn't believe it was for him. Then he turned to me with this huge, genuine smile. Not forced, not polite, just pure happiness. "Is this my real party?" he asked. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "This one's all yours." He ran around looking at everything, thanking people, showing off his Prince jacket again, with none of the nervousness from the first party. When cake time came, we set a brand new cake on the table. Blue frosting, his name written in bold white letters, 5 candles. Everyone gathered around him just like before. But this time it was different. Milo sat up straight, eyes bright, grinning from ear to ear. No cupcake boxes for anyone else. No kids pushing in front. No adults ignoring him. We sang. He leaned forward. I watched closely just out of instinct. He blew out every candle himself. All 5. One smooth breath. The room clapped. He laughed. He looked proud. Then he cut his own cake with my help. Steady hands on top of mine, and passed out slices to the other kids. He hugged 2 classmates who brought small presents. He played tag. He danced terribly. He ate too much frosting. And for the first time in weeks, he looked like Milo again. Meanwhile, in the background, quietly, slowly, things were shifting for my family. The school officially struck their names from all contact lists. They didn't get notified directly. They'd find out only if they tried to pick him up. Extended family started hearing small whispers. A cousin reached out asking if everything's okay. A couple of church members slowed their greetings toward Mara and Dennis. Nothing confirmed, just a shift in tone. The kind people notice. I watched Milo run around the room with a frosting mustache and a paper crown, laughing as kids chased him around the tables. That was all I needed. Over the next few months, I didn't reach out to Mara, Dennis, Tessa, or Reed. Not once. I didn't block them either. I just let the silence do what it needed to do. That silence ended up being louder than anything I could have yelled. Part 4. Things didn't blow up all at once. They unraveled slowly, the way real consequences usually show up. The first knock came in the form of a thin IRS envelope addressed to my parents. I knew because Dennis told my sister, who then told someone else, who finally told a mutual acquaintance. Small towns don't keep secrets long. Word was the IRS had questions about dependent claims and discrepancies. Nothing dramatic, just an audit notice, but for people like them, that's humiliating enough. Several months later, after the usual document requests and back and forth, they got a follow-up proposing changes. When those changes were finalized, the bill landed. Not a fortune, but enough that it clearly stung. Dennis apparently snapped at a cashier in the hardware store about government idiots targeting honest people. He didn't realize a neighbor 2 aisles over heard him. By the time she told someone else, the story twisted into him being investigated for stealing from his grandson. Didn't matter if it was exaggerated. The point was that people were talking and nobody defended them. Meanwhile, Tessa's trouble showed up differently. The school activities she applied for under single-parent discount sent letters asking for verification documents. She ignored the first. The second came with bold text saying they needed proof of income or she'd owe repayment. Parents at school noticed Jenna stopped showing up to dance class. Another kid's mom mentioned that someone lied on their forms. Tessa tried to brush it off as a misunderstanding, but nobody bought it. Reed wasn't fired or anything flashy like that, but I later heard from a coworker of his secondhand that management quietly pulled him from a client project. They needed someone with less personal drama involved. Take that as hearsay, but in office language, that's basically a demotion without using the word. As for Mara's church, that was the one place she thought she was untouchable. She'd been running their Children's Craft Sunday program for years. But after enough whispers, isn't she the one who played favorites? Pastor Griggs told her they were restructuring volunteers. She wasn't removed angrily. She wasn't confronted. She just wasn't asked to come back. Small-town exile is subtle. A cousin of mine told me later that Mara complained at a family gathering that everyone suddenly believes lies about us, but no one rushed to comfort her. Most people stayed polite and distant. Then there was Jenna. Her behavior caught up with her faster than the adults. Without my parents constantly propping her up and praising everything she did, she had to deal with regular kids who didn't care who her mom was. Her pushy behavior rubbed them the wrong way. One girl told her straight up, "You don't get to go first all the time." At a school event, she tried to cut to the front during a game, and the teacher corrected her sharply. She had a meltdown, full screaming, crying on the grass. Reed pulled her aside, embarrassed, but he couldn't yell because other parents were standing right there watching. Whispers started immediately. The same ones who used to admire Jenna now avoided her. Then, something unexpected happened. One Saturday morning, Milo and I were at the park. He was playing on the swings when Jenna walked over alone. No parents in sight. She looked different, not spoiled or smug, just tired. She stood in front of Milo, fidgeting with a loose thread on her sleeve. "Sorry," she mumbled. Milo blinked at her. "For what?" "For your cake," she said softly, "and other stuff." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't some forced apology with her mom feeding her lines. She looked almost embarrassed. Milo nodded, like he'd been waiting for it. "Okay," he said simply, then went back to swinging. She walked off without saying anything else. It wasn't redemption or anything dramatic, but it was human, and that was enough. Later that night, Milo sat beside me on the couch drawing. Out of nowhere, he said, "Mom, can we move houses?" I looked down at him. "Why do you want to move?" He kept coloring. "I don't like them knowing where we live. It doesn't feel safe." That word hit harder than anything he'd said before. Safe. No 5-year-old should need to think about safety from their own relatives. "Yeah," I said quietly, "we can move." And we did. Not right away, but within 2 months we found a small place across town. Clean neighborhood, big trees, walking distance to the school. Milo had a new room painted however he wanted. He chose dark blue with glow-in-the-dark stars. The day we moved in, he ran around the empty living room yelling, "This is our home!" like it was the best adventure of his life. I updated the school, the bank, my lawyer. No one from my old family was given the new address. Not even extended relatives. My parents tried one last time a couple weeks later. They showed up at my old place with a bag of gifts. The neighbor told them we'd moved. Supposedly, Mara started crying, saying she deserved a chance to fix the misunderstanding. Then Dennis said I needed to control the narrative before people judged them forever. They still didn't get it. They weren't sorry for Milo. They were sorry for how it looked. I didn't call them back. I didn't explain. I didn't open any door for them again. Months passed. Milo healed. New friends, new neighborhood, new start. And my family, well, they kept dealing with the consequences they created. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't need to. All I cared about was watching Milo run around our new yard, laughing freely. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.